leave this thing running just in case that when I shut it off, it doesn't run again. You hear it running. Only one problem. This. I don't understand what's going on. It was cranking just fine, and then all of a sudden it started doing that. When I hit the button, start button, the oil temperature light comes on. So I unplugged it, and that didn't change anything. So the only way to start it is to jump these two, and I don't like doing that. So I would imagine the solenoid is probably bad. But the good news is I have two of them coming. I accidentally ended up with one extra in a purchase because it just happened to come with a starter, because I had to get a starter for this one. My starter went bad. It's sitting right there. So every time I try to start my four-wheeler, it either do nothing or it'll try to do it and then it'll start grunting. So I pulled the starter off of the other frame, and I don't really want to rob that many parts off of it because I might want to use that motor. So I want to keep everything together as much as possible. So right now I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul. So I put a new starter in my Big Bear, and this one was cranking just fine. And then all of a sudden it just started doing that. I hit the button, it cranked over a few times, and then it just like it went dead. So now the start button doesn't work. I don't know if they have messed something else up in the wiring that I didn't get. I don't know. But I'm going to try a solenoid first. But I don't think that the switch is putting power back here. And the only thing different that I did was I put the original one back in it. So basically what that tells me is that whoever put this switch in had to change something else to make that switch work. And somewhere in that frickin' wiring harness, they must have compensated for the switch on something else. So I hate wiring problems, man. They're so difficult to find because there's so many wires going everywhere. And but we'll figure it out. I don't know what's caused. It can't be too many things that's wrong. Basically, the only thing I did was change my switch. If I would have done the job wrong, then it wouldn't have cranked the first time I pushed the button. So I know my switch is working okay. So, and I'll tell you why I know that is because after investigating what those guys had done to this wiring, they actually did it semi-correct. I didn't see the two plugs that was on the end of that. These are the two plugs that is supposed to go to my bike, except this one, the black one, I don't think it's the same. Yeah, it's the same. So they just plugged it into this, and then they wired it into, so they took two switches and made one switch, basically is what they done, and did an awful job, because this two wires right here are supposed to be these two wires. So I don't know what they've done in here, but before I had to tie them two together by twisting them together after I turned the switch on in order to get it to work. So that tells me this goes to the stop switch on the handlebars. So this is the plug for the stop switch. So you tell me why it's going in the harness and then back out of the harness, because it's the same two colored wires. So I'm confused. Oh shit. They didn't even hook up all the wires. There's a black one with a white stripe they didn't hook up. So who the hell knows what the hell went on. So when they're trying to hook up something that is a half-assed job, instead of just plugging the right stuff in it, they decided, well, I can't afford a switch, so I'm going to wire this old thing that's not compatible, and we're going to figure it out. And then they get it all figured out, and then they figure out, oh, I got to change something else. So they're going to change something else. And the next person's fucked. But anyway, we're getting ready to do some plastic on this thing. But it's not going to be plastic. We're gonna get creative. Or try to get creative. So we have the front fenders and the rear fenders. Now I have one of the rear fenders, but they have to match. So I'll probably not be using the plastic one and then having to make another one for the other side, because they're going to be different. So I'm just going to go ahead and make all 4 of them. But in the process, I did this half-assed job in the spur of the moment. I ain't even got y'all in line. I did this because there's a crack here somewhere. I can't remember where it's at. I don't have my light over here, but somewhere along in here there's a crack. Well, I did this to cover it up so I'd have a place to put my cigarette lighter. And I think I'm gonna change this panel and make it all one piece all the way across, just this area right here, all the way down. That way all 3 of these, this piece, and this piece, will all be tied together with one bolt in each of these holes. So we're going to try to make this out of tread aluminum. I got a bolt to extract, and they are not easy getting out of there, because usually if you can't get them off, you got to cut them off, and it looks like that's going to be the case here. And when you start cutting it, it warms the plastic up and melts it, so it kind of deforms your hole, and there's really not a whole lot you can do to combat that. So unless you just grind a little bit and let it cool down, or put water on it or something, you know, that's the way to do it. But they're a pain in the ass to get off. I always hope they break, but they never do. They hang on for dear life. So what I need to do is get some measurements of how wide I want to go here. Now, I'm not trying to make mud flaps that matches the ones that went on it. We're going to do some changing a little bit. Basically, we have options here. I've got my rod back here that keeps that from moving, but I'd like to try to figure out a better way of doing that. And since we're going to be changing mine, we have an extra hole here that mounts the bottom piece of that plastic that we can use for some kind of a support bracket. But we're going to try to do it just a fancy piece of tread aluminum. We're not going to try to make everything big and bulky. We're probably just going to do a piece right here that just comes down parallel to that, and then just mount it to this. And then we'll run a bracket from here to here, we think. So that will keep the bottom from flopping. So we may have to make a bracket for that for each side. Now on the back here, now this is not going to happen unless every piece I have has enough measurements. If it doesn't, we got to rethink it and try to go with something that would be better. So then we'll probably just do some kind of a taper right here to taper back into right here, from here to here. So we'll taper in about 1.5 inches, and then we'll come down and taper into this, or just above it. That's what we'll do. We'll just bring it down here and taper it to where it comes right to the top of this, but parallel with it. And then we can use this mount here, which is what you use for the other side. And it doesn't matter if it goes all the way in, because this piece, we can actually make a filler on the 3D printer with it, or for it. We could do some kind of a corner. Well, that's not hooked up now. Let me hook that up, since we know that's not the problem. And I got to put this back up in there. I made this bracket because this frame actually did not have a brake light. So they didn't need that bracket. So they didn't weld one on it. And I need to remember to tighten it up. Might as well tighten it up right this minute, huh? That is, if I can find the wrench that I need. Only need 2 of them. So we'll tighten that up. All right, and that's working. All right, then I want to plug my warmer back up, because I thought maybe that's the only other thing that was different, because I didn't have it plugged in before. So we're plugging that back in, and that motor's a little warm. But let's get to checking out to see what kind of metal we got to work with. You hear them damn aggravating frickin' blue jays? They are the most loud and obnoxious frickin' bird there is. So what I want to do is I want to get that piece of aluminum down without killing myself. But this is our choices of material to work with. So we're hoping that they're not going to be too awful big. If those are wider than the widest piece that I can make, because I'm going to have to make 4 out of all this, and we have to do it in a way that we make sure we don't screw ourselves. So basically we've already cut this pile down to from here to here that we can actually use. So we're going to try to stretch this out and see if we can get the maximum amount out of this, because once we get it cut, we could go cut back a little further back and maybe utilize the turn, but really nothing turns in that direction. So this could be a candidate for the back fender, so that when we bend it over, it'll be the bottom of the foot. But we got to make sure that from here to the bottom over here on this side is as long as we can get it, and then figure out from there how wide we can make ours, because we can only make it as wide as this is. So we're going to try to get 2 pieces out of this, and then we're going to try to get 2 pieces out of that. Those, I'm thinking, we'll do the front fenders. This, we can do the rear fenders. And who knows, this here may actually work for us on the rear fender. We'll see. Because it'll start out, like, let's say this is the top where it meets the fender. We could take and bend this out a little bit sharper, like it is on the 4-wheeler, and then just let it taper into this round, and then just kind of cut it around like this. Or we can just cut that completely off of it. We got plenty of choices. Won't know until the fat lady sings. Alright, so now we got our pieces. Now we got to figure out where we want to shape them. Sometimes that's not very fun, but sometimes it can be. So let me get all this tape off of it. So now these are going to be for the rear. That's what we're working on right now, it's the rear. Alright, we'll take them over to the bike and see what we're going to be doing. Alright, so we've got a crooked cut. So we already know that we're going to be down here about right at the bottom of that one piece. We've got to straighten it out. So that's going to be the next thing we need to do, because we really can't do nothing until we straighten this out. We need to get it all straightened out. So we're just trying to make a flat piece. So this is going to prove to be difficult. So it's not easy to straighten this stuff without making a big old wrinkle. Alright, so now that we've got that straight, now it's going to have a crease in it, but I don't think it's going to be noticeable. But we'll find out. So let's take it over there. Let's see. Yeah, let's take it over here and see what we got. So now we've got this piece cut. Now you see why I put that in there, so that it would kind of, I need to straighten it out a little bit more. But we need to put that in here just like that. Then we need to, it's going to have to be bent back a little bit. Well, we're not going to worry about getting it behind that yet. So we need to put it up to where it's going to be at the bottom of that star. That puts us right at 1 inch. Yep. So then we need to bring it this way. And that's as close as we're going to be able to get. So now we need to draw our mark right here and figure out where we're going to bend this, because when you bend this, it's going to change it to a different height. So we're hoping that we'll bend this right to where it comes level with this and still be right at 1 inch up here at the top overlap. So let me see if I can find me a marker, because I'm gonna have to have a marker for that, or a pencil. We might be doing okay with a pencil. So let's put this at our 1 inch mark. Hold that up against there. Well, shit. Stop moving on me. Alright. Now we're going to press on that. And we're just going to make us a mark here where we want it to be. Alright. And we're going to come all the way out to right here. And then we're going to start tapering this off. Just like so. And this will be where we cut it off. Just like that right there. Because this is all going to be folded up here. And we're probably just going to go to right there and like the other one was and be done with it. Alright, so now this part stays. We got to get rid of this part right here where I have drawn, where we're just going to cut around and just kind of feather back into this. So I'm going to cut that and we'll be back. Alright guys, now we've got our piece made, and it'll go in there something sort of like that right there. So we need to bend that just a hair more. Alright, so now we can go ahead and drill our holes in the top, because right there's where I want to put it. So I'm going to drill these 2 holes and get that to where it's held by itself. And then I'll drill these 2 holes down here and then that back hole over there. But first we want to do the top 2. Alright, so now the only thing we need to do is make a piece right here to go across here. Alright guys, I got the front of the rear fenders done. It just took too long to do it, so we'll do part 1 and 2 of the mud flaps. This is going to be the rear. So that's what I came up with. So I just took a piece of regular flat aluminum and made this bend. Yeah, it doesn't fit perfect, but it looks good. So I kind of wanted to keep the distance parallel right here, so that means nothing to me. So I just put a spacer underneath of it and put 2 bolts here and used all the existing holes for the fender. And I think that looks pretty decent. So I've done that side and I've done that side. So see, that one's got a gap in it too. Not a whole lot I can do about it, but you don't even notice it. So that's my mud flaps for my son's Big Bear. If I can get some more of that tread aluminum, I may just go ahead and do mine the same way. But we've got it running now, you've heard that. And I've got a few things I got to do. I got to put a solenoid on it. I hope that's all it is. I don't have one to test it right now. I'm still waiting on mine to come. So I don't know why it stopped all of a sudden. It had been cranking every time I hit the button. I changed the switch and now it won't start with the switch. So all it'll do is give me that red light when I hit the button. So I don't know what's going on. It has to be the solenoid, because if I can cross it over, then that means the solenoid's what's not working. So anyway, but it sounded good though, you have to admit, it did sound good. So I've got a few things left to do to it. I've done all the front end on it, redone the whole front end, put a winch under it, which I'm gonna have to change that winch. So I'm gonna take mine out from under mine and put in it, and because I got a new one for mine that's remote controlled or handlebar switch. So he's gonna get my old one. New tires, new bearings, new bushings, new tie rods, new ball joints, and new calipers, new tires, new lights. I have to wait for a set of lights to put in there. I've got the housing and everything to go in there that's for this, but I have to change the bulbs because both of them were blowed. Only one of them had a high beam, so it would have been a one-eyed bandit. So I had to get some headlights, and I'm waiting on those. So as soon as I get the headlights in, we'll get all the lights hooked up. So then we've got the brakes on it with the foot pedal brake, and rear disc brakes, and I took and cleaned this up and melted it because it just looked like it was dry, and I just melted it and made it a little blacker. It was pretty white looking. So we're getting there, guys. She's almost ready to test drive. So that's going to end part 3 of the Big Bear 400 build or rebuild for the rear mud flaps. That's the piece that we're going to do in the next video for the front, and I hope I have enough. I should have enough, but we'll see. Basically, I'm just going to cut that edge right there off to make it square, and then I'm going to cut that in half because that's 24 inches. It's 25 from here to the other end, 24 from here to the other end. So we'll cut that 1 inch off. We'll cut it in half, one for one side and one for the other side, and that'll do it. And then after I got done, I have 2 fenders left over for a single axle trailer. So that'll work. We even get extra parts, guys. And that road sign is what I use to make these pieces right here. Now I'm hoping that I'll be able to use these that I cut out of the rear on something. We'll find something to use those for. Who knows? Maybe we can make a shield for something. Who knows what we can use it for. But anyway, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. You guys have a good one. Later.